down, down, 雨伞. 2 tones going down. Not easy on the vocal cords. So what happens when you have 2 third tone sounds in a row? I'll give you a hint. 大家好, welcome to Sing and Learn Chinese. In this lesson, we're going to cover the Chinese tones. Now, you don't have to care too much about tones when you're singing Chinese, unless you're rapping, but when you're speaking it or listening to Chinese being spoken, you definitely got to know your tones. And once you learn your tones, you can combine them with the Chinese syllables from this Chinese pronunciation chart to learn how to speak and understand every single sound that exists in Mandarin Chinese. Download the chart at singandlearnchinese.com right now if you like, or after you finish watching this video. Okay, so what are tones anyway? The truth is, every language has tones, because human beings don't talk like robots. For example, in English, changes in your speaking tone indicate mood, emotion, subtext, context, etc. Take a look at this phrase. What happened? If you understand English, you know what these 2 words mean. But you can say these 2 words in a lot of different ways. For example, scared. What happened? Questioning. What happened? Getting angry. What happened? Sadly. What happened? Or robotically. What happened? As you can hear, the tone of my voice changes when the underlying emotion changes. But changing the emotion and changing my tone of voice doesn't change the dictionary definition of these words. What still means what, and happened still means happened. Whether I whisper it or shout it, say it as a question or as a statement, the definition stays the same. But in Chinese, that is not the case. Take the syllable. 2 letters, M and A, form ma. In English, ma means mother. And in Chinese, ma means mother as well, but only if you say it in a certain way. If you say ma, then it means mother. If you say ma, now this word means numb. If you say ma, the word means horse. And if you say ma, the word means to scold someone. Ma, 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 ma. Can you hear the difference? If not, don't worry, that's what we're going to cover right now. So in Chinese, there are 4 main tones. There is a 5th one, but we'll talk about that later. We call the tones by their numbers. 1st tone, 2nd tone, 3rd tone, and 4th tone. You can see them all here in this super handy color-coded chart. Now let's go over each tone individually. The 1st tone is high and light, ma. The graphic representation of it is a straight line, as you can see in the diagram up here in the left-hand corner. And I chose the color green to represent the 1st tone because green makes me think of spring and growing grass and leaves and cheeriness, and cheery voices are often higher pitched. So there. Quick warning. Now I'm going to explain what these 4 writings down below mean. If you're not interested in the details, just close your ears for 10 seconds. Now, when you're writing the 1st tone, you can either write a short horizontal line over the vowel, as you see here to the left with a pinyin spelling out M-A, and see how there's a little line on top of the A? That's a tone marking for the 1st tone. Or you can just type the number 1 next to the syllable. Technically, the first way is the correct way, but if you don't have a computer that can type in tone markings, the second is a shorthand, and most people should be able to understand what it means. As for the 2 symbols on the right, this is zuing, which is the syllabary system that the Taiwanese use to teach pronunciation. The difference here is that in zuing, you don't need a tone marking on top of the a vowel. In zuing, if there is no tone marking on the vowel, it's usually assumed to be the 1st tone. Learning zuing is optional, although if you ever plan to go to Taiwan, you might find it helpful to learn as a beginner. For a fuller explanation of the difference between zuing and pinyin and how Chinese pronunciation and the Chinese syllabary works, check out the Learn the Chinese Alphabet video, link below. Note, even though the video title is Learn the Chinese Alphabet, the truth is that Chinese does not have an alphabet, not like English. We'll talk more about the Chinese writing system in another video, but for now, know that pinyin and zuing are syllabaries, designed to help with pronunciation only. They're not the actual Chinese writing system itself. Okay, back to tones. The 2nd tone is a rising tone, as you can see in the graphic to the top left. It sounds like this, ma. Kind of like what happens to your voice in English when you're asking a question. Did you steal my ice cream? Hear how my voice goes up on that last word, cream? That's what the 2nd tone is, the rising tone. I decided to make this tone orange for the purposes of this presentation because orange makes me think of a fire that is slowly growing hotter. just like someone who is about to get angry will also sometimes speak in a rising tone, like, "Did you steal my ice cream?" As you can see down below, the second tone marking is a small line going up, and it's placed on top of the vowel. Next, we have the third tone, which technically goes down and then hooks up again, like this. Ma. But in reality, most Chinese speakers don't do the whole hooking up again thing at the end. It takes too much time. So most of the time, third tone words just sound like this. Ma. I chose blue because the way the third tone goes down makes me think of someone dropping a pebble into a lake, like plop. That's exactly what the third tone sounds like in real life. Ma. Plop. Ma. Plop. Hear it? The way that you write the third tone is with a V-shaped check mark on top of the vowel, as you can see here. Now, for the fourth tone. This tone goes straight down quickly, like an exclamation, or someone who is very angry, which is why I went with the color red for this presentation. It sounds like this. Ma. Just like if you ask someone, "Did you steal my ice cream?" and they said no, but you know that they did steal your ice cream, you'd say, "Yes, you did." Now, do you hear the emphasis on the word did? That is the fourth tone, a fast downward sound. Ma. Yes, you did. Ma. Did. Ma. Did. And the way you write the fourth tone is with a short line going down on top of the vowel, like so. Okie dokie. Let's hear them all together once more. Ma, 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 ma. First tone high and light, second tone rising, third tone down, and sometimes hooking back up, but usually not. Fourth tone going down fast with emphasis. Ma, 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 ma. Another quick warning before we move on. I'm about to explain the tones in a musical way. So if you're not interested in that, just close your ears for another 10 seconds, and after that we'll talk about the fifth tone. So, one way that I explain the tones is to think about music. If the first tone is an E, ma, then often the second tone in comparison sounds like a D. Ma, the third tone much lower like a G. Ma. And the fourth tone is no note at all, but a ghost note. You percussionists out there will be familiar with this marking. So like this. Ma, 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 ma. If this helps to think of the tones in this way, then go ahead and do that. If you find it confusing, then let it go. Because the tones are not really E, D, G, and a ghost note, for those of you with perfect pitch. They're relative to each other. So I can say ma, 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 ma. Or I can say ma, 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 ma. And it all works. Okay, those of you who don't like details can unclose your ears now. So I mentioned before that there is a fifth tone. And the reason why I put it here instead of above with the other four is because you don't see it a lot, and it's used mostly for accessory words that don't have a whole lot of meaning in themselves. They just add to other words, mostly. But basically, the fifth tone, also known as the qingsheng, is a bit like the fourth tone, only it's cut in half. Like you're in the middle of speaking and someone cuts you off before you finish. Ma. Hence the picture of the scissors here and the color gray, because it's more low-key. When people write it in Pinyin, they often don't include any tone markings at all, and you can just tell if it's a fifth tone based on the context. But in Taiwanese zuyin, they sometimes use a dot above the vowel to show that it is the fifth tone. If you understand musical notation, think of it like a staccato. Okay, so here are some examples of fifth tone words. Only zi, the word on the bottom right, is a word that can kind of stand by itself. It means child or son. Right above the word zi, we have the character de, which is a possessive character. What does that mean? Well, for example, the word for me in Chinese is 我. So, 我的 means mine. The word for you, as in me and you, is 你. So, 你的 means yours. The word for him is 他. So, 他的 means his. Get it? That's what I mean by a possessive character. It indicates possession. And the other two words you see here, ma and ba, are more for emotional emphasis. They don't really mean anything significant by themselves. So, for example, for ba, let's say someone is trying to convince you to let them eat your ice cream, but you don't really want to do that, yet they're just too persuasive, so you go, oh, okay, fine. That okay, fine in Chinese would be 好吧. If you were neutral about giving someone your ice cream when they asked for it, you would just say 好. Okay, here you go. No biggie. But if you were reluctant, that's when you would add the ba, 好吧. that isn't the only way to use ba. In fact, you can actually use it in a totally opposite way, but going into all of the nuances of these fifth tone words would be an entire video in itself, and we still have a lot of other things to go through. So let's go through them. Alright, time to combine some tones and see how they work out in the wild, wild world of real Chinese. But first, real quick for you musicians out there, here's the musical staff for representing how the tones work when combined together. Mama, 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 and mama. If this helps, use it. If not, scrap it. The important thing is to listen closely to how actual Chinese speakers use tones when they talk. Everything else, the color codes, the graphs, the musical notation, it's just to support you as you are training your ears to listen for tones. Whatever is helpful, use it. Whatever is confusing, ignore it. Alrighty, let's take a look at tone combinations that start with the first tone. First, we have a first tone combination, which sounds like this. Mama. For an example of an actual Chinese word that uses this tone combination, here is 飞机, which means airplane. 飞机. Next is the first tone, second tone combination. Mama. An example word is 天鹅, which means swan. For our 1-3 combo, mama, we have 婚礼, which means wedding. 婚礼. And for 1-4, mama, we have 豌豆, which means peas. Uh-oh, we have a weird pronunciation thing coming up. So the word 100 million in Chinese is made by combining the character for 1, yi, which is a first tone word, with the character for 100 million, yi, which is a fourth tone word. So do you pronounce it yi, yi? The answer, of course, is not on your life. Instead, when you have the word yi combined with a fourth tone word like yi, the E changes to a second tone, like this, E. But what if the word E is combined with a second or third tone word? Well, it changes again, but to a fourth tone this time, as in 一盘, meaning one plate, or 一起, meaning together. Why does it do that? Well, when you're talking fast, E as a first tone word doesn't stay in the first tone very easily, especially when you're combining it with other tones. Kind of like earlier when we were talking about how the third tone technically goes down and then up like this. Ma. But in practice, most people skip the going up part when they're talking because it's too much trouble, so they just say ma. Same deal here. At least, that's my best guess. Could be wrong. That's just what it feels like to me when I speak Chinese. Anyway, last combination for words beginning with the first tone, 1-5, mama. Our example here is 他的, as in 他的外套, meaning his jacket. And now we move on to tone combinations that begin with the second tone. Again, we have this musical staff here for those who want it. Mama, 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 mama. If this makes sense to you, you can pause the video and look as long as you like. Otherwise, the rest of us are moving on. First up, we have a second tone, first tone combination. Mama. Our sample word is 毛衣, which means sweater. Next is the 2-2 combo. Mama. Our sample word is Korea, 韩国. For our 2-3 combo, mama, we have 团体, which means a group. Then there is our 2-4 combo, mama. And as an example word, we have 童话, as in fairy tale. And finally, we end with a 2-5 combo, mama. Our sample word is 儿子, which means son. That was quick. Now we are moving on to the third tone combinations. Here again is our musical staff for our musical people. Notice that the 3-3 combo is crossed out. We're going to talk about that in a bit, so keep an eye out for a weird pronunciation warning. First, we have our third tone, first tone combo, ma. And our sample word is 手机, which means cell phone. Then we have 3-2, ma, and the sample word 警察, which means police. And now we have the promised weird pronunciation warning. Take a look at this word. 雨 means rain, and 伞 means umbrella. So the two words together mean umbrella. Specifically, the type that you use to protect yourself from the rain. The word for an umbrella that blocks out the sun is different. Anywho, if you put 雨 together with 伞, then do you say 雨伞? The answer is no. And of course you already knew that because you're very smart and you know how foreshadowing works, obviously. Anyways, as you could probably hear, saying 雨伞 sounds robotic and unnatural. Not to mention it's kind of hard to talk like that. Down, down, 雨伞. 2 tones going down. Not easy on the vocal cords. So what happens when you have 2 third tone sounds in a row? I'll give you a hint. Look at the picture on the right. Okay, so the answer is, in the case of the umbrella, the first character changes tones to the second tone, like this. 雨伞. This is pronounced 雨伞, umbrella. Those of you who are particularly observant notice that the umbrella picture is orange on top and blue underneath. Orange first, then blue. Second tone, then third tone. 雨伞. Ma, ma. But wait, we're not done with the tricky third tone, not just yet. Take a look at this word. Go. It means dog. Now, in Chinese, people often put 2 words together to convey cuteness. Just like in English, we add the E sound to words to make them cute. For example, if you're talking to a small child, you might say, look at the doggy. In Chinese, doggy is created by doubling up the word go. And when you do that, instead of changing the first go to a second tone, you change the second go to a second tone. Don't ask me why, I don't know, that's just the way it works. So it sounds like this. Go, go. Go, go, doggy. How do you know when to change a 3-3 combo into a 2-3 and when to change it into a 3-2? For me, it's just experience. Someone else might have a better explanation. If so, please leave a comment. But for me, it's just that you hear it a lot and it comes naturally. Just like when people say in English, when do you use a and when do you use the? A lot of times, I don't know what to say. It just sounds right, that's all. If someone has a better explanation, please leave a comment. Okay, one final fun fact. In Taiwan, the 3-2 combination is often used with family names for the familiar cutesy factor. For example, the word dad is 爸爸, but Taiwanese kids will call their dads daddy by saying 爸爸, 3-2, 爸爸. Same thing with mommy, mama, and same with all of the other familial names. Uncle, 叔叔, auntie, 阿姨, big sister, 姐姐, little sister, 妹妹, big brother, 哥哥, little brother, 弟弟, and so on and so forth. That is just the informal way of speaking in Taiwan. All of those names, with the exception of 姐姐, have different formal pronunciations. 叔叔, 阿姨, 妹妹, 哥哥, 弟弟. But whatever, TMI. You'll learn all of that in time. If this stuff hurts your brain, just ignore it for now. Okay, moving on. For our 3-4 combination, which sounds like ma ma, we have 笔记, which means notes, as in taking notes. As in, maybe you want to take notes for this video, if this material is new to you. Or maybe not, maybe you just want to replay it a few times. That's okay, and that usually helps too. And for our last 3rd tone combination, we have 3-5, ma ma. And our sample word is 椅子, which means chair. Holy macaroni, we've made it to the last set of tone combinations. I know, technically there is a 5th tone, but this video is getting long and there's not a whole lot more you need to know about the 5th tone besides what I've already told you. So, functionally, this is the last set. Phew. Again, some staff images for you musical people, and now let's get into the example words. 4-1 sounds like ma, ma, and an example of that is the 肉包, which means pork bun. Well, technically, 肉 means meat, but most meat buns are made of pork, if you've ever eaten these types of buns before. So, there you have it, 肉包. Next, 4-2, 嘛嘛. 面条 means noodle, or noodles, like in the picture here. I'm getting kind of hungry. Anyone else? Hang in there, we're almost done, and then you can reward yourself with a snack. For the 4-3 combo, 嘛嘛, we have 夜景, which means the night view or nighttime scenery. 4-4 sounds like 嘛嘛. And for this combo, we have 电视, which means television. And last but not least, we have our 4-5 tone combination, 嘛嘛. And the sample word is one that we mentioned before, 爸爸, which is the formal way of saying dad, 我的爸爸, my dad. 你的爸爸, your dad. And if you want to say daddy in the cutesy Taiwanese way, that would be 爸爸. Remember that. But be careful who you say that to. In certain parts of China, 爸爸 does not mean daddy. It means other things, one of which is not something people often mention in polite society. Anyways, that's it. You did it. You learned all 5 tones, and you learned how people use them and how they're combined with each other, and you also learned a whole lot of new vocabulary. So, good for you. Now that you know the tones, remember to combine them with the syllables from the Chinese pronunciation chart that you can get for free from singandlearnchinese.com. The chart has all of the 400 plus syllables that Chinese speakers use. So combine that with the 4 tones and you'll know how to say every sound that exists in modern Chinese, and some classical Chinese as well. And for practice, check out the Sing and Learn Chinese song teaching videos where we read and explain the meanings of Chinese song lyrics. You can also find English and Chinese covers of the songs, as well as karaoke versions to practice with, because practice is good. So remember to practice, and until we sing again, 再见.